In the vast and often chaotic world of finance, few names shine with the enduring clarity and gravitational pull of Warren Buffett, a man whose discipline, temperament, and almost monastic devotion to rationality have transformed not only his own fortune, but also the intellectual framework of countless investors seeking a compass in the market's shifting tides. To truly understand the billionaire blueprint behind his extraordinary success, one must step far beyond the surface-level anecdotes and approach the quiet architecture of his mindset, a structure built not from the flamboyance of modern speculation, but from the simple yet profound belief that value reveals itself only to those patient enough to look beneath appearance and courageous enough to act when others tremble. Buffett's story does not begin with privilege or prophetic insight, but with a young boy in Omaha who discovered, almost instinctively, the intoxicating power of compounding, a force he would later describe as the eighth wonder of the world and the engine that quietly transforms modest beginnings into staggering wealth when guided by consistent discipline over time. He devoured books, financial tables, and stories of entrepreneurs not out of academic obligation, but from an innate hunger to decode how money moves, how companies breathe, and how human behavior, often irrational and predictable in its fear, shapes markets more profoundly than numbers alone ever could. As he grew older, his discoveries accumulated like layers of sediment. The understanding that the stock market is a voting machine in the short run and a weighing machine in the long run. That temperament is more valuable than IQ. That risk arises not from volatility, but from not knowing what you are doing, and that the truest edge an investor can possess is the willingness to remain calm while the world convulses in cycles of greed and panic. These foundations solidified further when he encountered Benjamin Graham, whose principles of intrinsic value and margin of safety did not simply give Buffett a method, but awakened in him the certainty that investing, when practiced properly, is not gambling, but a disciplined search for truth beneath noise. The young Buffett adopted these teachings with almost religious devotion. Yet he did not remain confined within them. Instead, he refined and expanded them, shifting over the decades from cigar butt investing toward buying wonderful companies at fair prices, an evolution shaped by his partnership with Charlie Munger, who encouraged him to appreciate the immense long-term power of high-quality businesses capable of compounding internally with minimal intervention. It is this mixture of Graham's caution and Munger's appreciation for quality that created the Berkshire Hathaway model, a fortress-like holding company that acquires businesses not as short-term trades, but as lifelong relationships, trusting in the management, culture, and competitive advantages that allow these enterprises to flourish steadily, regardless of market cycles. Investors today often obsess over Buffett's public letters, his annual meeting quips, his portfolio allocations, and his rare but decisive acquisitions. Yet what they frequently miss is the emotional architecture that underlies every action he takes, the unwavering patience, the resistance to social pressure, the refusal to be seduced by fashionable narratives, and the profound comfort he finds in inactivity, knowing that opportunities worth taking do not appear every day, but must be seized boldly when they do. To follow Buffett's blueprint is not merely to copy his trades, but to cultivate the inner stillness required to make rational decisions in environments built on uncertainty, to see volatility not as an enemy but as a friend offering bargains, and to treat every dollar as a soldier in service of a long-term campaign rather than a chip to be tossed into the swirling casino of speculative excitement. His approach is deceptively simple, yet extraordinarily difficult in practice because it demands mastery over oneself, the taming of fear, the rejection of impatience, and the willingness to appear wrong or unfashionable for long stretches of time, while conviction quietly matures into results. Perhaps the most profound secret within Buffett's blueprint is that wealth is not built in the moments of action, but in the vast stretches of waiting. The years in which nothing seems to happen but compounding continues its invisible work, amplifying the consequences of good decisions and exposing the hidden cost of bad ones. And as we examine his journey from the modest beginnings in Omaha to the creation of one of the most formidable investment legacies in history, we start to realize that Buffett's genius lies not in predicting the future, but in understanding the present with such clarity that the future becomes a natural extension of rational choice, a perspective he maintains even when the world screams for urgency, when markets convulse under stress, or when the crowd chases illusions disguised as innovation. To follow his path is to recognize that the greatest opportunities often are during times of maximum pessimism, that risk is often mispriced when emotions run high, and that calm observation can uncover value overlooked by those distracted by noise. And as we continue to trace how these principles played out across the decades, from his early partnerships to his takeover of Berkshire Hathaway, from transformative purchases like See's Candies to massive allocations into companies such as Coca-Cola and Apple, we begin to see that the Billionaire Blueprint is not a secret formula, but a disciplined practice, a way of thinking that reshapes not only how we invest, but how we perceive uncertainty, opportunity, and the unfolding patterns of human behavior that ultimately steer markets in directions far more predictable than they first appear. Especially when one understands that the true battle is not against volatility, but against the impulses within ourselves that, if left unchecked, quietly erode the compounding engine that Buffett has spent his entire life demonstrating with unwavering clarity. And that becomes even more striking when we observe how he consistently chooses simplicity over complexity, patience over excitement, and principle over popularity, revealing a blueprint that remains astonishingly relevant in a modern world dominated by algorithmic trading, speculative manias, and the relentless pursuit of speed. For his philosophy reminds us that enduring wealth is built not through frantic movement, but through deliberate stillness, waiting for the right moment, when value becomes undeniable, and acting with conviction that seems almost old-fashioned. In an era obsessed with immediacy. Yet it is precisely this timelessness that makes Buffett's secrets less about technique and more about character, shaping a path that any investor can follow, but few truly will, because it demands the rare ability to remain steady when others waver, to think independently when crowds shout, and to trust in the quiet force of compounding, even when its effects seem invisible. Which is why the Billionaire Blueprint ultimately challenges us not merely to invest like Buffett, but to become the kind of person capable of applying these principles with the same unwavering discipline. And it is at this intersection of psychology, philosophy, and financial insight that we uncover the deeper truth behind his success, a truth that begins to illuminate itself even more clearly as we step into the next chapter of his journey, where the lessons grow richer, the decisions more complex, and the blueprint reveals the hidden mechanisms that explain why his method continues to thrive even in the face of changing markets and evolving technologies, showing us that the real secret lies not in reacting faster, but in thinking with a clarity that is immune to the market's turbulence, a discipline that becomes increasingly vital as Buffett enters the mature phases of his career, where each decision carries the weight not only of capital, but of legacy. And in these later decades, we see how his blueprint evolves from a personal philosophy into a living organism woven through Berkshire Hathaway, a structure designed to outlast him by instilling in successors the same reverence for rationality, patience, and ethical stewardship that has guided every major choice he has ever made. As we follow this trajectory, it becomes evident that the core of Buffett's genius lies in his ability to transform complexity into simplicity without losing depth. Reframing investment not as a battlefield of numbers, but as a narrative of human behavior, where the characters greed, fear, discipline, opportunity interact in predictable arcs across time. And it is this narrative lens that allows him to identify businesses whose stories are destined to strengthen rather than falter as decades unfold. Consider his acquisition of See's Candies, a pivotal moment that taught him the unparalleled power of a company with brand loyalty so enduring that customers return year after year without consideration of alternatives, and how this insight later guided him toward consumer franchises like Coca-Cola, whose economic moats are built less on physical assets than on emotional resonance, habit, and trust forces that compound just as powerfully as money itself. Or look at his immense investment in Apple, a company many dismissed as too tech-dependent for Buffett's temperament. Yet, he recognized not the technology, but the ecosystem of loyalty, simplicity, and user attachment that created a cash flow machine with psychological foundations as sturdy as any consumer staple, proving once again that he reads businesses not through the lens of trend, but through the deeper patterns of human preference that remain stable even as industries shift. And beyond the world of public markets, Buffett's blueprint shines even more clearly in his acquisitions of entire companies, from Geico to BNSF Railway, where he chooses leaders based on character rather than charisma, insisting that integrity is the ultimate competitive advantage because it safeguards value in ways no metric can quantify. This commitment to ethical alignment forms the moral backbone of Berkshire, a place where managers are trusted with extraordinary autonomy, because Buffett believes that responsible people, once empowered, generate results far superior to those produced by layers of bureaucracy or micromanagement. As we observe these patterns accumulate, the blueprint reveals a profound truth: that great investing is fundamentally an act of optimism, a belief that well-run businesses will continue serving human needs for decades, and that the world, despite cycles of panic and pessimism, tends to move upward over time for those patient enough to participate in its long arc of progress. Yet optimism alone is not enough. Buffett tempers it with a cautious respect for risk, choosing always to protect the downside before reaching for the upside. A mindset epitomized by his rule number 1, never lose money, and rule number 2, never forget rule number 1, a pair of principles that seem simplistic, yet contain within them the entire philosophy of disciplined capital allocation. As we travel deeper into his story, it becomes clear that the true essence of his method lies not in the act of buying, but in the act of refusing to buy when opportunities do not meet his standards. For the discipline of saying no is the silent engine behind his compounded success, ensuring that every dollar is deployed only when the odds tilt decisively in his favor, a mindset that modern investors often neglect as they chase momentum, trends, and excitement. And perhaps the most revealing element of his blueprint emerges when we examine his personal lifestyle: modest home, simple routines, unchanging habits. For these choices demonstrate that wealth, for Buffett, is not a tool for indulgence, but a resource for freedom, clarity, and the pursuit of meaningful work, a perspective that protects him from the emotional distortions that sabotage so many investors, whose decisions become entangled with ego, image, or envy. This emotional neutrality is not a natural gift, but a cultivated discipline, one that allows him to remain steady during market crashes, to see opportunity where others see danger, and to treat each downturn as a transfer of wealth from the impatient to the patient, a pattern he has exploited repeatedly with results that reinforce the blueprint's central promise: that long-term calmness is more powerful than short-term brilliance. As we approach the concluding arc of his journey, we begin to recognize that the Billionaire Blueprint is not primarily a financial system, but a worldview, a way of interacting with uncertainty that prioritizes clarity over complexity, consistency over drama, and principles over prediction, enabling Buffett to navigate environments that would overwhelm others while appearing almost effortless in execution. And it is in this final understanding that the story converges on its lesson: that anyone wishing to follow his path must first learn to master themselves, to cultivate patience in a world addicted to speed, to seek truth rather than noise, and to trust in the invisible mathematics of compounding that rewards those who resist distraction and stay aligned with long-term purpose. For the ultimate secret of Warren Buffett is that extraordinary wealth is the byproduct of ordinary decisions repeated with extraordinary discipline. And when we embrace this truth, the Billionaire Blueprint ceases to be a mystery and becomes a mirror, reflecting the investor we might become if we choose consistency over chaos, wisdom over impulse, and rational calm over the storms that continually sweep across the financial world. One tut.